Today I want to react to a recent discussion between Muslim Lantern and an agnostic caller named Dan. Going into the conversation, I was already unconvinced by Islamic apologetics, so I'm not pretending to be neutral, but I do want to evaluate the arguments fairly. My overall reaction is interesting. I don't think Muslim Lantern succeeded in proving his case. But more importantly, I don't think his arguments address the question that matters most to me. And that's the question I want to explore in this video. Let's start with the discussion itself. The conversation focused on three major topics: objective morality, the origin of the universe, and evidence for God. On objective morality, Muslim Lantern argued that if morality is subjective, then morality effectively disappears. According to him, without God, there can be no objective right and wrong. I found this unconvincing. First, I don't agree that objective morality requires God. There are philosophers who defend objective moral truths without appealing to any deity. Second, even if objective morality required God, that still wouldn't get us anywhere close to Islam. At most, it would get us to some form of theism. There's still a huge gap between, quote, there are objective moral truths, and, quote, Muhammad is the final prophet of Allah. That gap never gets closed. The discussion then moved to the origin of the universe. Muslim Lantern argued that the universe had a beginning and therefore requires a cause. He then argued that this cause must be eternal, powerful, and ultimately God. Again, I wasn't persuaded. There are multiple steps in that argument, and each step requires justification. Why should the cause be conscious? Why should it resemble a mind? Why should it be a personal being? Why should it be Allah? These conclusions seem to be asserted much more quickly than they were demonstrated. The weakest part of the discussion, in my view, came when the conversation shifted toward knowledge and design. Muslim Lantern argued that because the universe exists in a particular way rather than some other way, the creator must possess knowledge. But this seemed to assume the very thing that needed to be proved. The existence of a particular universe does not automatically imply a knowledgeable designer. That is precisely the point under debate. So overall, I found the arguments weak. But here's why my reaction becomes different from most atheist responses. Even if I granted every single one of those arguments, I still would not be remotely close to accepting Islam. And that's because my biggest problem with religion isn't morality. It isn't cosmology. It isn't fine-tuning. It's divine hiddenness. Throughout the discussion, I kept hearing Muslim Lantern explain what Allah wants, what Allah thinks, what Allah expects, what Allah commands. And I couldn't stop asking myself a simple question. Why am I hearing this from Muhammad Ali instead of Allah? Think about what Islam asks me to believe. Allah created me. Allah knows me better than I know myself. Allah wants me to know Him. Allah wants me to follow His guidance. Allah intends to judge me based on whether I accept that guidance. If all of that is true, then why is everything indirect? Why am I expected to trust Muhammad? Why am I expected to trust hadith narrators? Why am I expected to trust scholars? Why am I expected to trust apologists? Why am I expected to trust ancient reports? Why am I expected to trust people arguing on YouTube? Why is Allah absent from the conversation? Muslims often respond by saying Allah already spoke through the Quran. But from my perspective, that is the very claim that still needs to be established. I don't hear Allah speaking. I hear Muhammad claiming that Allah spoke. Those are not the same thing, and that distinction is everything. Imagine there are thousands of religions, thousands of prophets, thousands of revelations, thousands of competing claims. Christians tell me God revealed Himself through Jesus. Muslims tell me God revealed Himself through Muhammad. Mormons tell me God revealed Himself through Joseph Smith. Every religion points to a different messenger, and yet the Creator Himself never appears, never clarifies, never settles the dispute, never tells me directly which claim is correct. So when Muslim Lantern spends 40 minutes arguing against atheism, I find myself wondering whether he's answering the wrong question. Suppose I grant objective morality. Suppose I grant a creator. Suppose I grant an eternal cause. Suppose I grant every philosophical argument. What have we actually established? Not Islam, not Muhammad, not Revelation, not the Quran, not Allah. We have simply established that some kind of creator exists. The hardest part still remains. Why should I believe Muhammad? And my answer is simple. If Allah wants me to know him, then Allah should be capable of communicating with me. Not through chains of transmission, not through scholars, not through apologists, not through YouTube debates, but directly. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that a personal experience would automatically convince me. Human beings can be mistaken. People can hallucinate. People can misinterpret experiences. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But if the creator of the universe genuinely wants a relationship with me, surely he knows what evidence would convince me. Surely he knows how to distinguish himself from confusion, imagination, and error. And yet all I find are human beings speaking on his behalf. That is why I remain unconvinced, not because I have never heard arguments for God. I've heard countless arguments. The problem is that none of them solve the deeper issue. The deeper issue is this. If Allah wants me to know him, why doesn't Allah speak for himself? And until I hear a satisfying answer to that question, discussions about morality, cosmology, and fine-tuning will always feel secondary, because before I can believe Muhammad speaks for Allah, I first need a reason to think Allah is actually there.